Hello and welcome. I'm Claire Feldman, your host and guide on this journey to thriving in private practice without the burnout. Are you a passionate therapist who's struggling with the entrepreneurial side of things? Do you wish you could serve great fit clients at times that suit you? Are you seeking financial stability so you can continue doing what you love? If so, then you're in the right place. I know firsthand the difficulties of navigating the business aspects of therapy, from building a website to managing social media, but I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. Together we'll explore how you can build and grow your dream practice. So let's get started. Okay, Elsie, it is so lovely to have you. I believe this is your first time on a podcast. How exciting.
It is, yeah. I'm hopeful I won't say anything too outrageous, but yeah, thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome. So before we get into talking about all things Instagram, perhaps you could just let the audience know a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure. So I am a qualified psychotherapist who has worked in marketing for the last 7 years. I did a degree in psychology and a degree and a master's in psychology. And I realized that I wanted to become a therapist right before lockdown. So headed into lockdown and I did 1 year online and then my second and third year in person. During the third year, my mum was diagnosed with leukemia and I had like full existential crisis mode. And like my marketing job was supporting my studies all the way through. So I quit that and I was just like, okay, what now? So at this point, I paused my psychotherapy training because it was just too much alongside mum's illness, and then I was jobless. So I was like, what do I do? And then I went to brunch with some therapy friends and they were all talking about like how hard it was to go into private practice and how overwhelmed they were and confused and charging like ridiculously low rates. And I just realized that I had like all of this experience in marketing and the psychotherapy training under my belt, and that I could essentially combine the two, create some form of mentorship, which is what I do now. And then I made that into a course as well for a kind of lower investment. So that's how I've ended up here essentially.
Brilliant. And sorry to hear about your mum. I hope she's doing well now.
She is, yeah. She had a bone marrow transplant a year and a half ago, and so far so good.
Oh, so there's nothing like major life events like that to really change your perspective on things.
Yeah, no, it was actually, of course, I knew it was going to impact me really heavily because it was really awful news for me and all of our family. But I actually questioned like every part of my life, like everything I was doing. I was constantly thinking like, is this what I want? Why am I doing this? Why am I wasting time? It really puts everything into perspective.
Yeah. And I'm sure it feels like the best decision you could have made now.
Yeah, I was deeply, deeply unhappy in my work. Like I was in a 9 to 5, was told what to do, when to be there, who to be with, all those kinds of things. And it was actually quite disempowering.
Mhm.
Yeah, to now be able to like be in charge of my own day and my income and all those sorts of things. Like, yeah, it's the best decision I've made.
Brilliant. And we'll get into talking more about that, because what drew me into your Instagram and what I really love following you and your stories is that you're out walking your dog. Is it Tilly or Dilly?
Dilly, yeah.
And watching you're right, it's in the middle of the day and you're enjoying walks and you've got that balance. That's very important to you. You talk a lot about a life first business, which we all kind of can aspire to, but we were kind of talking just before I hit record about how I just get caught up so much in the busyness of it. I need to try and find that life first balance a little more. And I think when it comes to Instagram marketing, like, it is time consuming.
Mm.
It can be really time consuming, and there are ways of making it easier. There are ways of streamlining it a bit more. The more that we get used to it and more confident in using Instagram, it can get easier. But I think there is no getting away from, if you're choosing to use Instagram as a key form of marketing, a key platform for marketing, it can be really time consuming. So I love that your ethos is all about trying to make it as easy and as straightforward as possible, and obviously using then some paid ads to support that. Before we kind of get into talking about paid ads and that kind of being your zone of genius. Maybe can you talk a little bit about that kind of bringing together of two worlds, the marketing side and the psychology side, because this is the bit I think that therapists really struggle with, that when they think about marketing, they think about being sleazy and pushy and salesy. I wonder if you could speak into that maybe a little bit.
Yeah, so I guess I come from a paid ads background. So I worked in that for, out of the 5.5 years I was employed, I was in that for 4 of them. And then I did a little bit of freelance on the side while I was employed elsewhere. And I know that like therapists are really busy. You wear lots of hats. Inevitably, lots of therapists are women who are also mums. So we want to take the load off, right? And that's where like ads become your best friend. But like you said, like people can often feel like if they're pushing their content in front of someone, they feel like a salesperson, and they didn't sign up to be a salesperson. They signed up to be a therapist. So for me, ads have always been about increasing your visibility, but also making sure that that ideal client has the autonomy about whether or not they inquire or they choose to work with you. So this is why I'll never suggest necessarily that people are running ads to sales pages. What we're actually doing is running visibility ads to put your content in front of people who are looking to engage with you as a therapist, and then they'll consume your content, and it's up to them then whether they inquire or not. So we don't need to be like selling all the time. I always say this, like a lot of marketing mentors will teach you to sell on stories every day, and I just don't think it's necessary. I think people know that you're there, and they know that if you have availability, you can mention that like once or twice a week, but it doesn't need to be a hard sell all the time.
Yeah. And what would you say, like the balance? Would you say that like it is that 80 kind of 20% sort of balance, that you're creating content, engagement, helping them to get to know you, and then maybe 20% of the time that you're reminding them that you have?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Yeah. Especially on stories. I think that's generally like your warmest audience are going to be on your stories, right? So if you're selling 20% of the time on stories, that's 2 days out of 5 days a week, right? So I think that can be a really nice way, like subtle way to like remind your audience, okay, I do have this availability, but also they don't want to be feel like they're constantly being sold to. I know I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody was coming to work with you and say maybe that they're new to private practice, and maybe they feel a bit overwhelmed by the whole Instagram, because it is really overwhelming. There's loads of different accounts and different people to say do this and do that and show up that and create reels and then create carousels, and it can feel so confusing and so overwhelming when there's so many kind of conflicting advice and suggestions out there. If someone was coming to work with you who feels that kind of sense of overwhelm and is new to perhaps marketing themselves on Instagram, what would kind of be the process or the journey that you would take them on?
So I think that initially the really important part for you to focus on is getting clarity on who it is you help and how you help them. I think those are the 2 really straightforward, simple steps that you can start with. Because if you're just firing off really like generic content into the abyss with no direction, then you are going to feel overwhelmed. And that overwhelm is then you're going to feel lost. You're not going to know like who you're talking to or how what you're helping them with. Whereas if you strip it right back, I think a lot of people go straight into content.
Yeah.
I need to post 5 times a week. That's the most important thing. And it's not. Actually, you want to come back and you want to sort your foundations out first. So you want to figure out who it is you're speaking to and what you help them with. And then beyond that, you want to be thinking about things like your personal brand, your messaging, ethical marketing, all of those sorts of things. But none of that should be happening before you've done the foundational work.
Yeah, that's kind of basic.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just echoing what you said, that's a piece that gets missed often.
Yeah.
People go straight into, and you said about messaging, and I think once you are really so crystal clear on who your ideal client is, messaging can become easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's like you might have your different content types, but if you're so focused on hitting those different content types, but you don't actually know who you're talking to, then all you're doing really is ticking a box. Okay, I'll post on social media, so now I can go about my day. But if all you ever achieve is post on social media and people aren't inquiring, that's where you have an issue.
Yeah. Could you maybe lean into that a little bit more around what we mean by messaging? Like, what makes the difference between content that really connects with an ideal client versus that maybe just gets swiped by?
So I think it's about this being specific. You can be really general in your messaging and you probably won't really land with anyone. Whereas if you're really specific in the things that you speak to, like the daily experiences that they're having, the solution that you know that they need, but also the transformation that they want. So the solution is like your way. It's what you will do in therapy with that person, but the transformation is what they actually want. So you know they need therapy, but why do they want it? What's the outcome of the therapy sessions with you? You're able to connect the dots between their daily experiences, your solution, and the transformation. This is when your messaging will become really powerful.
Yeah. So that essentially your ideal client will see your content and see themselves.
Yeah.
What it is that you're talking about, rather than maybe the more generic content that is like hints and tips type stuff that they can really, that what you're posting about is as if you're almost speaking to them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you land on someone's account and their posts are like 5 reasons you need therapy, I just don't think people are really going to engage with that. There's not a huge amount of connection. But if you land on someone's account and they're reading your post and they're like, oh my God, she's speaking to me. She's speaking to my direct experiences. She understands everything I'm going through. Far more likely to inquire with you than you just telling them why they might need therapy.
Yeah. You want to feel like, oh, she gets me. That therapist really gets me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said like we don't want to be posting 5 times a day because who has time?
Not me. If I do, it's not for that.
I do see accounts and I do see therapists that are posting like every day. I'm thinking, my goodness me, how much time must this be taking and consuming in order to do this? Is there a minimum amount of time or a minimum amount of posts that we would want to be doing? Or
I think you can get away with 3 a week. I
Yeah.
tell most of my clients if they can do 4, then that's amazing. But also, I'm of the opinion that if life happens and you don't post any times that week, like nothing's going to fall apart. Instagram will still be here when you get back. Like consistency is important, but I actually think that frequency matters more. Like, even if it's twice a week, 3 times a week, that's better than doing 5 one week and then the next.
Yeah. Okay. So aiming for that kind of 2 to 3 is sort of.
I tend to say to my clients 3 to 4, if I'm being totally honest, but like I did 3 last week. I'm not worried about it. Probably do 3 again this week. I think it's fine.
Yeah, and I think you're right there. It's sort of matching with where you are and what's going on. So I think I scheduled 3 this week, and it's like that's what I have the capacity for, and there's a lot going on. So it could be 3 for a while, and then maybe another time, maybe it might be more. So it's about knowing yourself and knowing the energy, I guess, you have around it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's different. I always talk about different seasons of business, and this is where ads come in, because whilst you might not be necessarily so consistent on your post because life happens, you can pay Meta to be consistent with your ads. So it's the beauty of it.
Yeah, so that's a really lovely little segue into talking about paid ads. So so really interesting what you said there, because when I'm thinking about paid ads, I'm always thinking about paid ads for like a lead magnet, a free offer that I have. Really interesting that you're saying something slightly different there. So talk to me a little bit about like your recommendations around when a therapist might want to step into using paid ads.
Okay, yeah. So generally a rule for me is that if you've worked on your foundations, like we spoke about earlier, like your niche, your ideal client, you've built your personal brand, you've worked on your messaging, and you've got you know how to deliver content in a way that will generate inquiries, then you should be able to run your first ad. And it's not necessarily a lead magnet ad, like you just said. I teach a couple of different ways that you can run ads, and my number one go-to when someone joins mentorship or PPA is a visibility ad. And what it's going to do is it's going to put your content in, it's going to put your feed in front of your ideal client without you having to jump on all the trends or show up 7 days a week. So when you see these big accounts that talk about like growing their following and like you will see them jumping on all the trends. They're doing that for visibility purposes. But Meta can do that for you. You can literally pay Meta to give you that visibility. But if right now your content doesn't go beyond being helpful and sharing quotes, if you run a visibility ad, I don't expect you to gain anything beyond followers.
Yeah.
The aim is not followers. The aim is actually to gain inquiries alongside those followers. So, and on the flip side of that, if you have a decent number of followers and you're still not generating inquiries, that tells me that visibility is not your problem, your content problem.
Yeah. Okay. And what type, when you say about like the ad, the ad objective is about its visibility, what type of post or reel would make like a really good visibility?
So you've seen that trend, right? Last year, that was like, Pov, you've been looking for a therapist who specializes in American modality, and you find my account.
Yeah.
Something very similar to that. So it's literally just telling them what type of therapist you are in terms of like the niche that you work with and inviting them to come and have a look. It's literally like you just waving at them.
Right.
Yeah. They're scrolling and you're there like, hello, look at me. And then they land on your account. And if your content is high quality, they'll stick around. If your content is designed to generate inquiries, they'll inquire.
And that's where I think the real frustrating thing about the whole going viral thing can be, because one therapist can do that and go viral and increase their follower account by thousands, and another can do exactly the same thing, and it's crickets.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why you can't build your business on the foundations of virality, because you cannot control it. And you also don't own Instagram. So like, what do those 40,000 followers or whatever mean? 40, 50, 60. I've seen some big therapist accounts. What does that mean if that gets taken away and you haven't built in other foundations in terms of like websites and email and all those sorts of things?
You're speaking my language now.
And then on top of that, like I've seen big accounts that don't have full caseloads. I've got clients who've got under 2,000 followers and have got full caseloads. So actually the follower count's not important. It's the visibility and it's the quality of the visibility that's coming in. So you might have 1 million views, but how many of them actually want to be your client?
Yeah, that is so important, because let's face it, I am absolutely guilty of this, of wanting to go viral.
Yeah.
I'd love to go viral. And I would love to get like thousands of new followers and stuff to my account. I would absolutely love it. But I think there is something there about finding that sort of balance, because you could give so much energy away to going viral and potentially not getting anywhere with it. Or you put so much energy into trying to go viral, and then you're totally neglecting your email list or your website, or these other ways in which you could also be marketing yourself. So I love the fact that you've mentioned that actually you don't own Instagram, so be really mindful of making sure you have other platforms that you're marketing yourself on, or that you're leading your ideal audience to somewhere that you do, like your email list, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think it's really important to just note that, like, I'm sure everyone would, like, you're not alone in wanting to go viral and wanting to get loads of new followers. I think that's really natural and normal thing to want. But the trouble is that when the only content you create is for visibility, yourself a deeper hole.
Yeah.
Because if someone does land on your account and all they see is visibility content, you haven't got the nurture there that's required for someone to view you as the therapist for them. And it can become a really vicious circle.
Yeah. So when somebody really knows who their ideal client is, they've got their messaging is working really well, their engagement is good, that for then that might be a point where they're thinking about stepping into paid advertising to do all that for them, to kind of take a lot of the having to constantly show up, to kind of make it a little bit more easeful. I know there's probably how long is a piece of string to this question, but is there any particular like recommendation around how much would you spend for an ad campaign, and how long would you run it for?
£5 a day is plenty. All of my clients will spend £5 a day, and then it depends how long you want to run it for. Like, you could run that for a week, take a break. You could run it for a month if you wanted to. You'd be wanting to pay attention to when things start to drop off. So if you're spending £5 a day and you're consistently getting like 20 new followers, for example, and that keeps happening, you're not going to continue with that, provided that you're getting inquiries as well. If you spend, let's say you spend 50 quid and you've got loads of new followers but no inquiries, there's a sign there that you need to maybe like show up more in your stories. There's you're missing some dots that connecting the two, but you don't need to spend a fortune. And this is why I always talk about, like, I think that's one of the biggest myths in ads, is that they're really expensive. And they're not, so long as you pair them with an organic strategy, which is what I'm all about. So the reason that that works is because traditionally when people run paid ads, they're running them really cold and they're running them to crappy content. So they become really expensive. Run paid ads to really strategized organic content that's designed to take your audience on a buyer journey, which is what I teach. The quality of your content's so high that you can spend really low amount in ads and still generate inquiries from it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really interesting. And when you said about not showing up in stories, so the paid ad is going to the quality organic content that's posted, and then the being in stories is the helping the ideal client to really kind of build that know, like, and trust.
Exactly, yeah. So the paid ad is purely visibility. It's then your job to warm them up once they land on your account, once they follow you. Your content's got to do the work. Your stories have got to do the work. Your emails, if you have a freebie, they're going to come into your email list. Your emails will do the work. So the ads are purely, at that point, the ads are purely visibility, and then it's up to you to warm them up.
Okay, brilliant. I'm assuming you wouldn't advise that therapists just kind of play about with paid ads on their own?
I think you can learn ads in YouTube if you really, really wanted to learn ads in YouTube, but I wouldn't advise that you just start running ads to an account that's not optimized, because I think you will piss money down the drain.
Someone who has pissed lots of money.
It doesn't make it so easy to do though. Like, you can learn ads, you can learn to run. They're not complicated. This is what ad agencies will have you believe in, that ads are complicated and you can't do it on your own. You can do it on your own, but the strategy behind the ads, this is not about the logistics of setting up the ads. It's about the strategy. That's the harder part.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I've done that in the past. I've just thrown money at it and literally the ads aren't actually going anywhere near my ideal audience or client. So you make sure that you've got that spot on. Can you tell me a wee bit about the packages and the services that you have that help therapists with this?
Yeah, sure. So primarily I run a mentorship, which is like high touch one-to-one support. And within that, you'll get access to my private practice accelerator, which is a course. I teach everything I've spoken about here, essentially. So it's all about getting the foundations in place with ethical marketing. I also speak about personal brand and ideal client, niche clarity. All of those foundations are covered. And it's not until that you've done all of that you'll then move into content creation. Your content is then, I teach you how to take your audience on what's called a buyer journey. It's all about marketing psychology, and we have this specific content types that essentially take your client from understanding the symptoms that they have and why they're experiencing them to positioning your therapy space as the solution. We then have like a marketing messaging module, which we spoke about a little bit earlier. And then only once all of that is done and my clients have 12 to 15 really high quality content posts on their grid, do we run a visibility ad. So you'll learn that within PPA and within mentorship as well. And then we'll have a lead magnet and I'll teach you to run ads to that as well. So like, you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket at any opportunity. There's always like, okay, we've got our Instagram, we've got our followers, but how can we bring them into our email list, because we own that?
Mm-hmm.
And you can supercharge that with ads. So you might only have like 2,000 followers, but you can just keep running ads to your freebie, which is going to bring more and more people into your email list.
Yeah.
And then you can warm them up in there as well.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I am in the middle of creating a new digital product, which adds inside that as well.
Brilliant. How long might that journey be from kind of starting with you to kind of getting to that place of running ads?
I have people switch their ad on generally around the end of month 2. And that's really if they're hot on it. Like, it's not a quick process. There's a lot to learn here. but I see really instant results from when that ad's turned on. Like last couple of weeks, I had someone join PPA in the end of January. She switched her ad on in week 7, and by week 8 she's got 2 new clients, not just inquiries, like actual clients, and that was really rapid. So I was really, really pleased for her about that. But it's very much, there's a different journey for everyone. But what I try to highlight is that my clients with the full caseloads, they haven't done that overnight. Like that's been a process. It's been 6 months.
Yeah.
And they didn't start from zero either.
I am so glad that you have mentioned this, because I was just about to wrap up, and then something I would really love to speak into. You said there some of the clients that are really hot on it. Is it fair to say, because I think sometimes that people can get drawn in and see other results that are happening and think amazing, and maybe be unrealistic with the timescales around how long it might be for them to get to that place of getting inquiries and getting a full practice. But also, I don't know how to word this in a way that's kind, but I sort of feel some people are naturals on Instagram and pick it up really easily and quickly, and that's their platform. And for other people, it's just not so easy. And it is going to really take them time to learn this kind of skill around it. And so I think sometimes for the ones that actually it's not natural to them, that it is going to take them so much longer maybe than for the person who picks it up and finds it really easy and just goes with it and runs with it.
Yeah, I think as marketers, like, we have an ethical responsibility to be upfront about how long this takes, how long this process takes. Because when you're on Instagram and you're scrolling, you'll see a lot of people sharing really rapid wins, and it can become really demoralizing. So when someone starts with me, one of the first things I say is like, this will require time and effort. So I think the simplest way to put it is like, if everyone could fill their caseload by going viral in 2 months with minimal work, then we would have all done it by now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really nice point to kind of finish on with that. Like, let's be realistic around this, that we can feel demoralized. And I feel that as well sometimes when we see these amazing and these quick wins. We're all human, we're all impacted for it, but we need to be able to step back and see this bigger picture, and the bigger picture for the reality for most people is it's not like that. We're talking 6 months, maybe a year to even get to that point of getting, the inquiries in and filling our practice. And I think that needs to be spoken about kind of so much more, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it can be really empowering to kind of step back and think to myself, actually, what I'm doing here is mastering the skills that I need to fill my practice and beyond that, as opposed to like, oh, this needs to happen right away, and if it doesn't, I'm a failure.
Yeah, you're mastering skills for the long term, really, the long term success of your business.
Yeah, it's all about sustainability, and like, virality is not sustainable necessarily in the same way. If you can build your business on foundations of things you can control and use paid ads to facilitate like busier seasons of business, then you're onto a winner.
Love it, Elsie. It has been fantastic to have you here today and to have this conversation, and I know that my audience is going to love it and get so much from it. Just before we finish, could you please tell everybody where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, or you can find me at my website, elsielawrence.co.uk. Super simple. You can drop me an email, but I am faster on Instagram. It's just my place, and I love a voice note. So
yeah, I love voice notes as well. And it is just, your handle is literally just Elsie Lawrence.
Just _ Elsie Lawrence, yeah.
Or Elsie Lawrence. Super. Thank you so much, Elsie.
That's okay. Thank you.
So that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you found the episode helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could share it with other counsellors and therapists in private practice. If you'd like to find out more about me and how I can help you build and grow your private practice, hop on over to my website, which is www.prosperinprivatepractice.com, and you'll also find me on Instagram under the same name. But until next time, I will see you soon. Take care.